Thank you, Gleaves. You know, since you added up all the times that I've spoken to Hauenstein Center audiences, when you put it that way, I think I'm going to have to ask for tenure. I've been here long enough. It's about time.
We'll give it to you.
Okay, well, yes, this is part of a 6-part series, and I have to remind myself of the titles. As a teacher, I make a point of going back over the ground we've covered to remind students of what they're supposed to know. And so I will just read the titles for the lectures so far and the one remaining after this. The first title was the HalfStep Rule. Oh, by the way, these are rules for being a good president, or rules for evaluating presidents. The first one was the HalfStep Rule, and the subtitle is Timing, Timing, Timing. And the essence of that lecture was that successful presidents are successful at a particular moment in time. And what made George Washington a great president in the 1790s worked in the 1790s. It definitely would not have worked in the 1820s or in 2008. The second lecture was on loyal to a fault, or why nice people make lousy presidents. And the point of this lecture was to distinguish what we could call a private code of ethics from the code of ethics of the successful politicians. And there comes a time when decisions have to be made for the greater good, for the good of the nation, that might not correspond exactly with the decisions that you would make if you were concerned only about your own self and your own conscience. The third lecture was Sam Goldwyn's secret. Sincerity is everything. Learn to fake it and you'll go far. And the point of this lecture was that being a successful president requires knowing how to fill the role of a president. A president is not simply a private individual. A president is a representative of the nation. And as a representative of the nation, the president fulfills certain public roles, almost performs certain public rites, gives speeches, preeminently these days, the State of the Union address. And you have to know how to play the role. You can be brilliant on policy. You can be a very insightful analyst. But unless you know how to fill the role, you're going to be a failure. The greatest presidents knew how to play the role. And the role changes over time. It depends in part on the way that communications are conducted. Franklin Roosevelt was absolutely brilliant as a radio performer. He would not have been particularly good on television. Ronald Reagan was brilliant on television. And because each man mastered the medium of his day, each man was able to communicate very effectively. Yesterday afternoon, I spoke on the subject of, well, the title was, They Don't Vote in Montevideo, or All Foreign Policy is Local. Now, I didn't mean to offend any citizens of Uruguay. The point was that they don't vote in American elections in foreign countries. And therefore, presidents, when they're devising foreign policy, have to pay attention to American politics. Sometimes it's nice if people in foreign countries like American policies, but that's not essential. It's much more important that people in the United States like American policies. The topic for today, we're on lecture 5, is, oh yes, leave under a cloud and the sun is sure to shine. This has to do with the way historians treat presidents. And this is not simply a matter of historical curiosity. It's a matter of current curiosity because we're always gauging current candidates against some historical measure. Now, I will begin first with a statement that is attributed to Samuel Butler, who said, "Even God cannot change history. Only historians can change history," which may be why God allows historians to exist. Now, this is supposed to get a little chuckle, but there's also a real truth behind it. I'm asked, how will history view the current president? How will history view this or that? And I usually tell the questioner, history won't view this president or anything else in any particular way. Historians will. And sometimes in my more immodest moments, I think when I observe whoever happens to be the current occupant of the White House, that as long as that person is in the White House, then the person is sort of beyond my reach. My reach as a humble historian. Yeah, I'm asked to comment on current events, and I do as well as I can. But once the president leaves the White House, then that president, however powerful that president is or has been, that president is at my mercy. Not my mercy alone, but at the mercy of people like me. Because what you know about George Washington, what you know about Abraham Lincoln, has nothing to do with direct perception of the events. It's all filtered through people like me. And if I and my colleagues decide, for whatever reasons, to start telling you that Chester Arthur was the towering figure of Gilded Age politics, then after a while we will convince you that that was the case. So you have to be nice to us. I mean, actually, you don't have to be nice to us. This is what I sometimes think. I had the honor about a year and a half ago of having dinner at the White House. And actually this was because I was a historian. It was to commemorate the 300th anniversary of the birth of Benjamin Franklin. And I wrote a book about Benjamin Franklin, and I casually knew President Bush when he was in Texas. He has twin daughters, and my two daughters were in high school together, and they were in the same classes. So I ran into him and Mrs. Bush at the back-to-school nights at Austin High School. And then I ran into him again at the Texas Book Festival. And so somehow he knew I had written on Benjamin Franklin, or somebody on staff knew I had written on Benjamin Franklin. So they invited me to the White House. And I was fortunate enough to have dinner with the president at the table. There were a bunch of other people around, but it was interesting. And he was a most engaging dinner host. And I enjoyed the dinner very much. And I really liked the surroundings of the White House and all the pomp and circumstance, the Marine Band playing and everything like that. And it was great. But I have to say that there was this moment of, what shall I call it, professional hubris or something, when I was just thinking as I was walking out, or actually I thought a couple times during the dinner, how, Mr. President, you are the most powerful person in the world right now. But as soon as you leave this office, you're at the mercy of folks like me, wretched scribblers like me. Anyway, I don't know, maybe that's why he had me there. Maybe he was trying to spin me early, and who knows. Anyway, and actually I do have in mind sometime writing a history of not just this Bush administration, but of the Bush dynasty. And it's a terrific story, and by the way, it's not over. There is a George P. Bush who has the current, I have to be careful here because I could fall into the trap. Well, I say John Kennedy, this wasn't a trap, it was intended as a joke when he described the city of Washington, D.C. as being an amalgam of northern charm and southern efficiency. Well, anyway, keep your eyes out for George P. Bush. Okay. I want to talk about presidents and how they fared with the historians. And I'm going to look at, I think I'm going to look at two presidents in particular. And if I have time, I'll get to a third, and maybe we'll project to a fourth, if your questions lead us in that direction. The first president I'm going to talk about is Woodrow Wilson. Now, I have a particular affection for Woodrow Wilson, and it's an odd kind of affection, because he was not the sort of person to inspire personal affection. But as somebody who makes a living writing, that's me, I had enormous admiration and respect for Woodrow Wilson's way with words.